Carl Jung warns, the terrible consequences of stopping when you're overloaded. Welcome, dear listeners, to a transformative journey into the heart of Carl Jung's depth psychology, where we uncover the profound and sometimes unsettling truths about what happens when you're overwhelmed and dare to pause. Today, we're diving into Jung's warning, the terrible consequences of stopping when your life feels like a runaway train. Our focus is the first sign that your soul is crying out for transformation, the subtle, haunting whisper of the shadow. In Jungian psychology, the shadow is the hidden part of your psyche, a repository of everything you've pushed away, your fears, desires, insecurities, and traits you'd rather not acknowledge. When you're overloaded, buried under work, family demands, or the weight of endless to-do lists, this shadow begins to stir. It's not a loud cry at first, but a quiet, persistent unease, a feeling that something within you is out of sync, begging to be heard. Imagine Sarah, a marketing executive in her 30s, whose life is a masterclass in multitasking. She juggles high-stakes campaigns, carpools her kids to soccer practice, and maintains a vibrant social media presence that screams success. Colleagues admire her, friends envy her energy, but Sarah feels a growing restlessness. At night, when the house is quiet, she lies awake, her mind racing with a vague sense of dissatisfaction. She might dismiss it as stress, but Jung would say this is the shadow whispering. It's the first sign that her psyche is overloaded, stretched to its limits by a life that prioritizes external achievement over inner balance. The shadow doesn't judge, it simply holds the parts of Sarah she's ignored: her need for rest, her unexpressed creativity, her buried resentment at always being on. Jung's teachings remind us that the shadow is not an enemy but a guide. In his seminal work, Psychological Types, he wrote, "The shadow is a moral problem that challenges the whole ego personality, for no one can become conscious of the shadow without considerable moral effort. This moral effort is daunting when you're overwhelmed because every ounce of energy is funneled into keeping the plate spinning." The shadow's whisper might manifest as irritability. You snap at a coworker over a minor mistake, or as fleeting self-doubt, wondering why you feel empty despite your accomplishments. For Sarah, it shows up in her short temper with her kids, followed by guilt that she can't shake. These moments are not random, they're the shadow projecting itself into your conscious life, signaling an imbalance that demands attention. When you're overloaded, stopping feels like the ultimate risk. There's always another email to answer, another deadline looming, another expectation to meet. But Jung warns that ignoring the shadow's whisper invites chaos. If you keep pushing forward, numbing the unease with distractions, binge-watching shows, scrolling social media, or pouring yourself into work, the shadow doesn't disappear. It grows stronger, waiting for a crack in your defenses. For Sarah, this might mean a moment of burnout, where she breaks down in tears during a meeting, unable to explain why. The shadow's whisper becomes a shout, forcing her to confront what she's avoided. Jung's concept of individuation, the lifelong journey toward becoming your true self, begins here, in this moment of recognition. The shadow is the gatekeeper to transformation, and its whisper is an invitation to pause and listen. Let's make this personal. Think about your own life. Maybe you're a student cramming for exams, a parent juggling multiple roles, or an entrepreneur building a dream from the ground up. The shadow's whisper is universal. It might appear as a nagging sense that you're not doing enough, even when you're exhausted, or as envy toward someone who seems to have it all together. These feelings aren't flaws, they're signals from your psyche, urging you to stop and reflect. Jung believed that the shadow holds the key to growth. By acknowledging it, you begin to integrate the parts of yourself you've pushed away. For Sarah, this might mean admitting she's exhausted and taking a single evening to journal her thoughts instead of tackling another task. This small act of stopping creates space for the psyche to breathe, setting the stage for deeper transformation. The beauty of Jung's psychology is its universality. The shadow doesn't care about your status, age, or achievements. It speaks to everyone. When you're overloaded, the temptation is to silence it with busyness, to drown out the whisper with noise. But Jung's wisdom teaches us that this only delays the inevitable. The shadow demands to be seen, and stopping, even for a moment, is an act of courage. Sarah's journey begins when she acknowledges her restlessness, allowing her to explore why she feels so disconnected. This is the first step in individuation, where the overloaded psyche starts to reclaim its center. It's not about abandoning your responsibilities but about creating space to listen to your soul. This process isn't easy. Confronting the shadow requires vulnerability, especially when you're used to being in control. But Jung's depth psychology offers hope. The shadow isn't here to destroy you, it's here to guide you toward wholeness. By pausing to hear its whisper, you begin to weave the fragmented parts of yourself into a more authentic whole. Sarah might discover that her restlessness stems from a neglected passion for painting, a part of her she buried to prioritize her career. By picking up a paintbrush, even for an hour, she honors the shadow and takes a step toward balance. This act of integration is what Jung calls the confrontation with the unconscious, where the soul begins to awaken. As we explore this sign, consider the alternative. What happens if you ignore the shadow's whisper? Jung warns that it doesn't stay quiet forever. The longer you push forward without pausing, the more likely the shadow is to erupt in ways you can't control through conflict, illness, or a crisis that forces you to stop. The overloaded psyche can only bear so much before it demands reckoning. But there's hope in this warning. By listening now, by stopping even briefly, you can begin to transform. The shadow's whisper is not a curse but a call to adventure, an invitation to embark on the journey of individuation. It's a reminder that your soul is resilient, capable of finding balance even in the chaos of modern life. This sign resonates because it's human. We all feel the weight of overload at times, whether it's the pressure to perform, to provide, or to be perfect. The shadow's whisper is your psyche's way of saying, you are more than your tasks. By heeding it, you open the door to a richer, more meaningful life. Sarah's small act of journaling might seem insignificant, but it's a radical step toward self-discovery. Jung's psychology teaches us that transformation begins with these quiet moments of courage, where we choose to listen instead of run. The shadow is not your enemy, it's your ally, guiding you toward a self you've yet to meet. So, as you sit with this, reflect on your own whispers. Where do you feel that quiet unease? Is it in the moments when you're alone, when the world's demands fade and your thoughts grow loud? Or is it in the frustration you feel toward others, masking a deeper conflict within? The shadow's whisper is your soul's plea for attention, a sign that transformation is possible. By pausing to listen, you take the first step on Jung's path of individuation, where the overloaded psyche finds its way home. But what happens when this whisper grows louder, when the unconscious demands more than a fleeting glance? Isn't that the moment when the soul's journey truly begins? We continue our exploration of Carl Jung's profound warnings about the dangers of stopping when you're overwhelmed, diving into the second sign of psychological transformation, the stirring of the anima or animus. In Jungian psychology, the anima is the feminine aspect of a man's psyche, representing intuition, emotion, and connection to the unconscious. The animus, conversely, is the masculine aspect of a woman's psyche, embodying logic, assertiveness, and independence. These archetypes are not mere concepts but living forces, bridges to the deeper layers of your soul. When you're overloaded, caught in a relentless cycle of tasks and expectations, the anima or animus begins to awaken, often in ways that feel foreign or unsettling. Picture Michael, a software engineer whose life revolves around code, deadlines, and logic. His days are a blur of meetings and problem-solving, leaving no room for rest. Yet, lately, he's been drawn to poetry, feeling emotions he can't quite articulate. This is the anima stirring, urging him to reconnect with his neglected intuitive side. Jung emphasized the anima and animus as mediators of the unconscious. In The Archetypes and the Collective Unconscious, he wrote, the anima and animus are the means by which we relate to the deeper layers of the psyche, bringing us closer to the self. When you're overwhelmed, these archetypes emerge to counterbalance your one-sided focus. For Michael, his obsession with logic has suppressed his emotional depth, creating a psychic imbalance. The anima's stirring might manifest as vivid dreams, sudden mood swings, or an inexplicable pull toward activities that feel unlike him. A woman, like Sarah from our previous example, might notice her animus awakening through a newfound assertiveness, perhaps pushing back against her usual role as the peacemaker in her family. These stirrings are the psyche's attempt to restore equilibrium, but they're easy to dismiss when you're drowning in responsibilities. The danger lies in ignoring this sign. When you're overloaded, stopping to engage with the anima or animus feels like a luxury you can't afford. Michael might scoff at his poetic impulses, labeling them impractical and doubling down on work to silence them. But Jung warns that suppressing these archetypes leads to projection. You begin to see the qualities of your anima or animus in others, often in distorted ways. Michael might find himself irritated by a colleague's creativity, not realizing he's projecting his own neglected anima onto them. For a woman, an unintegrated animus might manifest as conflict with authoritative figures, as she projects her own unacknowledged strength. These projections create tension, both within and without, deepening the sense of overload and disconnection. Transformation begins when you embrace these stirrings. Jung's concept of integration requires you to dialogue with the anima or animus, not push them away. For Michael, this might mean carving out time to write poetry, even if it feels awkward at first. This act of stopping, of honoring the psyche's call, allows the anima to guide him toward balance. It's not about abandoning logic but enriching it with intuition. The anima or animus is a bridge to the unconscious, and by crossing it, you tap into a wellspring of creativity and wisdom. This process is central to Jung's individuation, where the soul moves toward wholeness by integrating its opposites. Michael's poetry becomes a lifeline, a way to reconnect with the depth he's ignored. This sign is universal, resonating with anyone stretched thin by life's demands. Whether you're a teacher grading papers late into the night, a caregiver putting others' needs first, or an entrepreneur chasing success, the anima or animus stirs when your psyche is lopsided. The key is to recognize these moments as opportunities, not distractions. When you're overwhelmed, the temptation is to keep pushing, to ignore the dreams, emotions, or impulses that feel out of place. But Jung's wisdom teaches us that these are the soul's attempt to heal itself. By stopping to listen, you allow the anima or animus to guide you toward authenticity. For Michael, writing poetry isn't just a hobby, it's a step toward becoming a more integrated self. Let's reflect on this. Have you felt drawn to something unexpected? Latilia hobby, a feeling, a dream that doesn't align with your usual routine? For a woman, it might be a sudden urge to speak up in a meeting, defying your usual deference. For a man, it might be a pull toward vulnerability, like confiding in a friend. These are not random, they're the anima or animus calling you to pause and reconnect. The overloaded psyche craves balance, and these archetypes are its messengers. By heeding them, you take another step on Jung's path of transformation, moving closer to the self, the integrated, authentic you. The beauty of this process is its accessibility. You don't need to overhaul your life to engage with the anima or animus. Small acts of stopping writing a journal entry, taking a walk to clear your mind, or exploring a new interest can open the door to transformation. Michael's poetry might start as a few scribbled lines, but it becomes a portal to his unconscious, revealing insights he didn't know he had. Jung's psychology offers hope. Even in the chaos of overload, your psyche is working to guide you. The anima or animus is not here to disrupt but to harmonize, to help you weave together the fragmented parts of your soul. As we explore this sign, consider the cost of ignoring it. If you suppress the anima or animus, their energy doesn't vanish, it festers, creating inner and outer conflict. Michael's irritation with his colleague could escalate into a feud, or Sarah's unacknowledged assertiveness might lead to impulsive decisions she regrets. Jung warns that the unconscious always finds a way to be heard. But there's hope in this warning. By stopping now, by giving space to these stirrings, you can harness their energy for growth. The anima or animus is your ally, guiding you toward a life that feels more whole, more true. So, as you sit with this, ask yourself, where is your anima or animus stirring? Is it in the emotions you've pushed aside, the impulses you've dismissed as impractical? The overloaded psyche is not a prison, it's a crucible for transformation. By pausing to listen, you begin to integrate these powerful archetypes, taking another step on Jung's path of individuation. But what happens when the unconscious grows louder, flooding your life with symbols you can't ignore? Isn't that the moment when the soul's transformation becomes undeniable? As we journey deeper into Carl Jung's warnings about the perils of stopping when overwhelmed, we arrive at the third sign of psychological transformation, the flood of archetypal symbols. Jung taught that the unconscious communicates through symbols, vivid images, recurring dreams, or meaningful coincidences known as synchronicities. When you're overloaded, racing through life with no time to breathe, the unconscious responds by flooding your awareness with these symbols, demanding that you pause and listen. Consider Lisa, a single mother and corporate manager whose days are a relentless cycle of emails, school pickups, and late-night chores. Recently, she's been haunted by dreams of a dark forest where a glowing figure beckons her forward. During the day, she notices coincidences like repeatedly seeing the word journey in books or conversations. These are archetypal symbols, signaling that her psyche is crying out for transformation. Jung believed that symbols are the language of the soul. They emerge from the collective unconscious, a shared reservoir of human experience, and carry universal meanings. The forest in Lisa's dream might represent the unknown, a call to explore her inner world, while the glowing figure could symbolize the self, Jung's archetype of wholeness. When you're overwhelmed, these symbols become more frequent and intense, as the unconscious seeks to break through your conscious defenses. For Lisa, the overload of her daily life managing a team, parenting alone, and suppressing her own needs has created a psychic imbalance. The symbols are her psyche's attempt to restore equilibrium, urging her to stop and reflect on what truly matters. The danger of ignoring this flood is significant. When you're overloaded, symbols can feel like distractions or even annoyances. Lisa might dismiss her dreams as random or brush off the synchronicities as coincidences, focusing instead on her endless to-do list. But Jung warns that suppressing these symbols risks psychic fragmentation. The unconscious will not be ignored. If you keep pushing forward, the symbols may intensify, manifesting as anxiety, intrusive thoughts, or even physical symptoms like headaches. Lisa might find herself inexplicably tearful during a mundane task, not realizing that her psyche is forcing her to confront what she's avoided. The flood of symbols is a call to individuation, Jung's process of integrating the conscious and unconscious to become whole. Transformation begins when you engage with these symbols. Jung's method of active imagination, dialoguing with the images of the unconscious, offers a way to stop and listen. For Lisa, this might mean sketching the glowing figure from her dream or journaling about what the forest represents. By doing so, she opens a dialogue with her unconscious, allowing the symbols to reveal their wisdom. The forest might symbolize her fear of change, while the glowing figure could represent her potential for growth. This act of stopping, of giving space to the unconscious, is a radical step toward healing. It's not about solving the symbols like a puzzle, but about letting them guide you toward a deeper understanding of yourself. This sign is universal, touching anyone overwhelmed by life's demands. Whether you're a student buried in assignments, a caregiver stretched thin, or a professional chasing success, the unconscious speaks through symbols. You might notice recurring images in your dreams: a river, a mountain, a door, or experience synchronicities, like hearing a song that echoes your emotions at just the right moment. These are not accidents, they're the psyche's way of saying, there's more to your life than this chaos. Jung's psychology teaches us that symbols are bridges to the self, the integrated core of your being. By pausing to explore them, you begin to weave the fragmented parts of your psyche into a cohesive whole. Let's make this personal. Reflect on your own life. Have you noticed recurring dreams or coincidences that feel strangely significant? Perhaps you keep seeing a particular animal, or a phrase pops up repeatedly in unexpected places. These are your psyche's messages, urging you to stop and listen. When you're overloaded, the temptation is to dismiss them, to keep running on the hamster wheel of busyness. But Jung's wisdom offers a different path. By engaging with these symbols, you open the door to transformation. Lisa's act of journaling about her dream might seem small, but it's a powerful step toward individuation, where the soul begins to awaken. The beauty of this process is its accessibility. You don't need to be a Jungian scholar to work with symbols. Simple acts, writing down a dream, noticing a synchronicity, or meditating on an image can unlock profound insights. For Lisa, the glowing figure becomes a symbol of hope, reminding her that she's capable of more than just surviving. Jung's psychology offers a lifeline. Even in the chaos of overload, your psyche is working to guide you. The flood of symbols is not a threat but an invitation to explore the depths of your soul, to discover the wisdom that lies beneath the surface. As we explore this sign, consider the cost of ignoring it. If you suppress the flood of symbols, their energy doesn't dissipate, it builds, potentially erupting in ways that disrupt your life. Lisa's tearful moments could escalate into a full-blown crisis, forcing her to stop in ways she can't control. But there's hope in Jung's warning. By pausing now, by giving space to these symbols, you can harness their energy for growth. The unconscious is your ally, guiding you toward a life that feels more meaningful, more whole. The flood of symbols is a call to adventure, an invitation to embark on the journey of individuation. So, as you sit with this, ask yourself, what symbols are flooding your life? Are there dreams, images, or coincidences that keep appearing, demanding your attention? The overloaded psyche is not a burden, it's a crucible for transformation. By pausing to listen, you begin to integrate these powerful messages, taking another step on Jung's path toward wholeness. But what happens when the ego resists, clinging to control in the face of this flood? Isn't that the moment when the soul's journey grows more complex? Our exploration of Carl Jung's warnings about the dangers of stopping when overwhelmed brings us to the fourth sign of psychological transformation, the ego's fierce resistance to pause. In Jungian psychology, the ego is the conscious self, the part of you that navigates the world, makes decisions, and maintains your sense of identity. When you're overloaded, the ego becomes a taskmaster, driving you to keep going despite exhaustion. But when the psyche begins to signal transformation through the shadow's whisper, the anima's stirring, or the flood of symbols, the ego digs in its heels, resisting the call to stop. Imagine David, a small business owner whose days are consumed by managing finances, employees, and customer demands. Lately, he's felt an urge to slow down, to take a day off, but his mind rebels, insisting that stopping would lead to failure. This is the ego's resistance, a sign that transformation is near but fraught with inner conflict. Jung taught that the ego is essential but limited. It thrives on control, structure, and predictability, but transformation requires surrender to the unconscious. When you're overwhelmed, the ego clings to busyness as a defense mechanism, fearing that pausing will unravel everything you've built. For David, the ego manifests as a voice in his head: if you stop, the business will collapse. You're indispensable. This resistance might show up as guilt when you consider rest, anxiety about falling behind, or a compulsive need to check emails even on weekends. The ego's resistance is a sign that the psyche is pushing for change, but the conscious self is not yet ready to let go. The danger of this resistance is profound. If you allow the ego to dominate, you risk becoming trapped in a cycle of exhaustion. Jung warned that an over-identified ego creates a split in the psyche, disconnecting you from the unconscious. This split might manifest as chronic stress, strained relationships, or a sense of emptiness despite external success. David might notice tension with his employees, not realizing that his refusal to pause is projecting his inner turmoil onto others. The ego's resistance can also lead to physical symptoms: insomnia, tension headaches, or fatigue that signal the body's alignment with the psyche's plea for rest. If you keep pushing, the unconscious may force a pause through crisis, such as illness or burnout. Transformation begins when you confront the ego's resistance. Jung's concept of the transcendent function offers a way forward. By holding the tension between the ego's need for control and the unconscious's call for change, you create space for a new perspective. For David, this might mean taking a single afternoon off, despite his fears, and reflecting on why stopping feels so threatening. This act of pausing allows the ego to loosen its grip, opening a dialogue with the unconscious. The transcendent function is not about destroying the ego but helping it evolve, aligning it with the deeper self. David's reflection might reveal that his fear of stopping stems from a need to prove his worth, a realization that shifts his relationship with work. This sign is universal, touching anyone overwhelmed by life's demands. Whether you're a parent, a student, or a professional, the ego's resistance is a common barrier to transformation. You might feel it as a voice that says, "You can't afford to rest," or as guilt when you prioritize yourself over others. Jung's psychology teaches us that this resistance is not a flaw but a sign of growth. The ego is protecting you, but it's also limiting you. By pausing, even briefly, you begin to integrate the conscious and unconscious, moving toward individuation. David's afternoon off might seem small, but it's a radical act of courage, a step toward a more balanced life. Let's make this personal. Reflect on your own resistance. Do you feel guilty when you consider taking a break? Does your mind flood with reasons why you must keep going? These are the ego's defenses, signaling that transformation is near. Jung's wisdom offers hope. By confronting this resistance, you open the door to growth. The ego is not your enemy, it's a partner that needs guidance. Small acts of stopping meditating for 10 minutes, saying no to an extra task, or simply sitting in silence can soften the ego's grip, allowing the psyche to breathe. The beauty of this process is its simplicity. You don't need to dismantle your life to overcome the ego's resistance. Incremental steps, like David's afternoon of reflection, can shift your perspective. Jung's psychology reminds us that transformation is a dance between control and surrender. By pausing, you allow the transcendent function to work its magic, bridging the gap between ego and unconscious. David might discover that his business thrives when he trusts his team, freeing him to explore other parts of himself. This is the promise of individuation, a life that feels more whole, more authentic. As we explore this sign, consider the cost of unchecked resistance. If the ego refuses to yield, the psyche may force a reckoning through burnout, conflict, or loss. But there's hope in Jung's warning. By stopping now, by facing the ego's fears, you can harness its energy for growth. The ego's resistance is not a barrier but a threshold, inviting you to step into a new way of being. The overloaded psyche is a crucible for transformation, and the ego, when guided, becomes an ally on this journey. So, as you sit with this, ask yourself, where is your ego resisting? Is it in the guilt you feel when you consider rest, or the fear that stopping will unravel your life? The psyche is calling you to pause, to trust that transformation awaits. By facing this resistance, you take another step on Jung's path of individuation. But what happens when the unconscious reveals a deeper wound, a pain you've buried beneath the busyness? Isn't that the moment when the soul's journey grows more profound? We continue our journey through Carl Jung's warnings about the dangers of stopping when overwhelmed, arriving at the fifth sign of psychological transformation, the emergence of a buried wound. In Jungian psychology, the psyche is a tapestry of experiences, some radiant, others painful. When you're overloaded, racing through life to keep up with demands, you often bury emotional wounds, traumas, losses, or unresolved conflicts beneath the surface. But when the psyche signals transformation, these wounds resurface, demanding to be healed. Picture Emily, a nurse who thrives in the high-pressure environment of the ER. Her days are a blur of saving lives and comforting families, but lately, she's been triggered by memories of her father's death, a loss she never fully grieved. This is the wound beneath the busyness, a sign that her soul is calling for reconciliation. Jung taught that wounds are portals to the unconscious. They hold energy, wisdom, and potential for growth, but only if you face them. When you're overwhelmed, busyness becomes a shield, keeping these wounds at bay. For Emily, her relentless schedule is not just a necessity, it's a way to avoid the pain of her father's absence. The wound might manifest as sudden sadness, disproportionate anger, or physical tension, like a knot in her chest. These are not random, they're the psyche's way of saying, stop and look within. The wound's emergence is a critical stage of individuation, Jung's process of becoming whole by integrating all parts of the self, including the painful ones. The danger of ignoring this sign is profound. If you keep burying the wound, its energy doesn't vanish, it festers, influencing your life in unconscious ways. Jung warned that unhealed wounds create complexes, clusters of emotions that hijack your behavior. Emily might find herself overreacting to a patient's family, not realizing she's projecting her unresolved grief. This can lead to strained relationships, self-sabotage, or even physical illness, as the body expresses what the psyche cannot. If you refuse to stop, the wound may force a reckoning, perhaps through a crisis that leaves you no choice but to face it. The overloaded psyche can only carry so much before it demands healing. Transformation begins when you honor the wound. Jung's method of shadow work, exploring the hidden parts of the psyche, offers a path forward. For Emily, this might mean stopping to journal about her father's death or seeking therapy to process her grief. This act of pausing is not about dwelling on pain but about giving it space to speak. The wound holds wisdom. Emily's loss might reveal her deep capacity for empathy, a gift that fuels her nursing but also needs boundaries. By facing the wound, she begins to integrate it, transforming pain into strength. This is individuation in action, where the soul grows by embracing its scars. This sign is universal, touching anyone overwhelmed by life's demands. Whether you're a student, a parent, or a professional, you carry wounds, perhaps a childhood rejection, a failed relationship, or a loss you've never mourned. When you're overloaded, these wounds stay buried, but the psyche's call for transformation brings them to light. Jung's psychology teaches us that this is not a punishment but an opportunity. The wound is a teacher, guiding you toward wholeness. By stopping to listen, you begin to heal, weaving the pain into the fabric of your being. Emily's grief becomes a source of compassion, not just for others but for herself. Let's make this personal. Reflect on your own wounds. Do you feel a pang of sadness you can't explain? Or perhaps an anger that seems out of proportion? These are clues to the pain beneath your busyness. Jung's wisdom offers hope. By facing these wounds, you unlock their transformative power. Small acts of stopping writing about a memory, talking to a friend, or simply sitting with your emotions can begin the healing process. The wound is not your enemy, it's a guide, pointing you toward a more authentic self. The beauty of this process is its depth. You don't need to resolve the wound overnight. Incremental steps, like Emily's journaling, can shift your relationship with pain. Jung's psychology reminds us that healing is a spiral, circling deeper with each encounter. By pausing, you allow the wound to speak, revealing insights you didn't know you had. Emily might discover that her father's death shaped her resilience, a realization that frees her to set healthier boundaries. This is the promise of individuation, a life that embraces all parts of you, even the broken ones. As we explore this sign, consider the cost of avoidance. If you keep burying the wound, its energy will find a way to surface, perhaps through conflict or illness. But there's hope in Jung's warning. By stopping now, by facing the pain, you can harness its energy for growth. The wound beneath the busyness is not a flaw but a threshold, inviting you to step into a deeper understanding of yourself. The overloaded psyche is a crucible for transformation, and the wound, when honored, becomes a source of strength. So, as you sit with this, ask yourself, what wound lies beneath your busyness? Is it a loss you've never grieved, a fear you've pushed away? The psyche is calling you to pause, to trust that healing is possible. By facing this wound, you take another step on Jung's path of individuation. But what happens when the psyche reveals a call to purpose, a deeper meaning you've ignored? Isn't that the moment when the soul's journey grows radiant? As we delve deeper into Carl Jung's warnings about the dangers of stopping when overwhelmed, we reach the sixth sign of psychological transformation, the emergence of a call to purpose. In Jungian psychology, purpose is not just a career or goal but a deep, soul-driven sense of meaning that aligns with the self, the archetype of wholeness. When you're overloaded, consumed by the grind of daily life, this call often lies dormant, drowned out by noise. But as the psyche signals transformation, the call to purpose begins to surface, urging you to stop and realign. Imagine Priya, a graphic designer whose days are filled with client revisions and tight deadlines. Lately, she's felt a pull to create art that reflects her cultural heritage, a passion she's sidelined for years. This is the call to purpose, a sign that her soul is seeking a deeper expression. Jung taught that purpose is the psyche's compass, guiding you toward individuation. When you're overwhelmed, the ego prioritizes survival, paying bills, meeting expectations, leaving little room for meaning. But the unconscious, ever wise, sends signals to remind you of your soul's potential. For Priya, this call might manifest as daydreams about her art, a longing to teach others, or a sense of emptiness despite her success. These are not distractions but invitations to pause and explore what truly matters. The call to purpose is a pivotal stage of transformation, where the psyche asks you to shift from living reactively to living intentionally. The danger of ignoring this call is significant. If you keep pushing through overload, dismissing the pull toward meaning, you risk alienation from the self. Jung warned that a life disconnected from purpose leads to a sense of futility, even in the face of external achievements. Priya might excel in her career but feel hollow, as if something essential is missing. This disconnection can manifest as apathy, cynicism, or a vague dissatisfaction that lingers despite success. If you refuse to stop, the call may grow louder, perhaps through a crisis that forces you to reevaluate your path. The overloaded psyche craves meaning, and ignoring this call only deepens its hunger. Transformation begins when you heed the call to purpose. Jung's concept of active imagination, engaging with the unconscious through creativity or reflection, offers a way to stop and listen. For Priya, this might mean dedicating a weekend to sketching her heritage-inspired art or exploring how she could share it with her community. This act of pausing is not about abandoning her job but about making space for her soul's expression. The call to purpose is a guide, pointing her toward a life that feels more aligned with her true self. By following it, she begins to integrate the ego's drive with the unconscious's wisdom, a key step in individuation. This sign is universal, touching anyone overwhelmed by life's demands. Whether you're a teacher, a parent, or an entrepreneur, the call to purpose emerges when the psyche seeks meaning. You might feel it as a longing to volunteer, a desire to learn something new, or a sense that your current path doesn't fully reflect who you are. Jung's psychology teaches us that this call is not a luxury but a necessity. By stopping to explore it, you begin to weave your personal story into the larger tapestry of the collective unconscious. Priya's art becomes a bridge, connecting her to her ancestors and her community. Let's make this personal. Reflect on your own call to purpose. Do you feel a pull towards something greater, a project, a passion, a way of serving others? When you're overloaded, it's easy to dismiss these urges as impractical. But Jung's wisdom offers hope. By listening to this call, you unlock your soul's potential. Small acts of stopping writing about your dreams, researching a new interest, or talking to someone who inspires you can ignite transformation. The call to purpose is not a burden, it's a gift, guiding you toward a life that feels vibrant and true. The beauty of this process is its flexibility. You don't need to overhaul your life to answer the call. Incremental steps, like Priya's weekend of sketching, can shift your trajectory. Jung's psychology reminds us that purpose evolves, growing clearer with each act of courage. By pausing, you allow the unconscious to reveal your next step. Priya might discover that her art inspires others, leading her to teach workshops that blend creativity and culture. This is the promise of individuation, a life that integrates your outer responsibilities with your inner calling. As we explore this sign, consider the cost of ignoring it. If you silence the call to purpose, you risk a life that feels mechanical, devoid of joy. But there's hope in Jung's warning. By stopping now, by giving space to this call, you can harness its energy for growth. The call to purpose is not a distraction but a compass, guiding you toward the self. The overloaded psyche is a crucible for transformation, and purpose, when embraced, becomes a source of radiance. So, as you sit with this, ask yourself, what is your call to purpose? Is it a passion you've sidelined, a dream you've deferred? The psyche is urging you to pause, to trust that meaning awaits. By listening to this call, you take another step on Jung's path of individuation. But what happens when the psyche reveals a confrontation with the collective, a clash between your soul and the world's expectations? Isn't that the moment when the journey grows bolder? Our journey through Carl Jung's warnings about the dangers of stopping when overwhelmed brings us to the seventh sign of psychological transformation, the clash with the collective. In Jungian psychology, the collective represents the shared norms, values, and expectations of society, often embodied in cultural roles or institutional demands. When you're overloaded, you conform to these expectations to survive, but as the psyche signals transformation, you begin to feel a tension between your emerging self and the collective's pressures. Imagine Jamal, a lawyer whose life is defined by billable hours and client meetings. Lately, he's felt a growing discomfort with the cutthroat culture of his firm, yearning to advocate for social justice instead. This is the clash with the collective, a sign that his soul is awakening to its unique path. Jung taught that individuation requires differentiating yourself from the collective. While the collective provides stability, it can stifle the soul's growth by enforcing conformity. When you're overwhelmed, you lean on these norms to keep going. Jamal stays late at the office because that's what lawyers do. But the psyche's call for transformation disrupts this alignment, creating friction. The clash might manifest as disillusionment with your role, resentment toward societal expectations, or a sense that you're living someone else's life. For Jamal, it's a nagging feeling that his work contradicts his values, a tension that grows stronger as he ignores it. The danger of ignoring this clash is significant. If you suppress your soul's awakening to appease the collective, you risk psychic stagnation. Jung warned that over-identification with the collective leads to a loss of individuality, leaving you feeling like a cog in a machine. Jamal might excel in his career but feel disconnected, as if he's betraying himself. This disconnection can manifest as cynicism, isolation, or even physical symptoms like chronic fatigue, as the body mirrors the psyche's distress. If you refuse to stop, the clash may escalate, perhaps through a conflict that forces you to choose between conformity and authenticity. Transformation begins when you honor this clash. Jung's concept of the persona, the social mask you wear, offers a way to navigate it. By examining your persona, you can discern which parts align with your true self and which serve the collective. For Jamal, this might mean stopping to reflect on why he became a lawyer and exploring how he can align his work with his values. This act of pausing is not about rejecting society but about carving out space for your soul's voice. The clash with the collective is a call to individuation, urging you to balance personal authenticity with social responsibility. This sign is universal, touching anyone overwhelmed by life's demands. Whether you're a teacher conforming to curriculum standards, a parent meeting societal expectations, or a professional chasing status, the clash emerges when your soul seeks authenticity. Jung's psychology teaches us that this tension is not a flaw but a catalyst. By stopping to explore it, you begin to differentiate yourself from the collective, weaving your unique thread into the human tapestry. Jamal's desire to advocate for justice becomes a bridge, connecting his personal growth to the greater good. Let's make this personal. Reflect on your own clash. Do you feel trapped by expectations at work, in your family, or in your community? Do you sense a disconnect between who you are and who you're supposed to be? Jung's wisdom offers hope. By facing this clash, you unlock your soul's potential. Small acts of stopping questioning a norm, setting a boundary, or exploring a value that feels true can ignite transformation. The clash is not a burden, it's a call to authenticity, guiding you toward a life that reflects your deepest self. The beauty of this process is its empowerment. You don't need to overthrow the collective to honor your soul. Incremental steps, like Jamal's reflection on his values, can shift your relationship with society. Jung's psychology reminds us that individuation is a dance between self and world. By pausing, you allow your soul to speak, revealing how you can contribute uniquely. Jamal might start taking pro bono cases, aligning his career with his passion for justice. This is the promise of individuation, a life that balances personal truth with collective harmony. As we explore this sign, consider the cost of conformity. If you ignore the clash, you risk losing yourself to the collective's demands. But there's hope in Jung's warning. By stopping now, by honoring your soul's voice, you can harness this tension for growth. The clash with the collective is not a battle but a threshold, inviting you to step into your authentic self. The overloaded psyche is a crucible for transformation, and authenticity, when embraced, becomes a source of power. So, as you sit with this, ask yourself, where is your clash with the collective? Is it in a role you've outgrown, a norm that feels stifling? The psyche is urging you to pause, to trust that authenticity is possible. By facing this clash, you take another step on Jung's path of individuation. But what happens when the psyche reveals a confrontation with the divine, a sense of something greater calling you? Isn't that the moment when the journey grows transcendent? We continue our exploration of Carl Jung's warnings about the dangers of stopping when overwhelmed, arriving at the eighth sign of psychological transformation, the encounter with the divine. In Jungian psychology, the divine is not necessarily religious but a universal archetype representing the transcendent, the numinous, a sense of something greater than yourself. When you're overloaded, consumed by the grind of daily life, this archetype often lies dormant. But as the psyche signals transformation, the divine begins to stir, manifesting as a longing for meaning or a brush with the ineffable. Picture Anna, a high school teacher whose days are filled with lesson plans and grading. Lately, she's felt a pull toward meditation, experiencing moments of awe during quiet walks in nature. This is the encounter with the divine, a sign that her soul is awakening to a deeper reality. Jung taught that the divine is central to individuation, the process of becoming whole. It represents the self, the integrated core of your psyche, and connects you to the collective unconscious. When you're overwhelmed, the ego focuses on survival, leaving little room for transcendence. But the unconscious, ever wise, sends signals to remind you of your soul's connection to something vast. For Anna, this encounter might manifest as a sense of peace during meditation, vivid dreams of light, or a sudden appreciation for life's beauty. These moments are not random, they're the psyche's way of urging you to stop and reconnect with the numinous. The danger of ignoring this encounter is profound. If you dismiss these moments as fleeting or irrelevant, you risk disconnection from the self. Jung warned that a life devoid of the numinous feels hollow, even if it's filled with achievements. Anna might excel in her teaching but feel unmoored, as if something essential is missing. This disconnection can manifest as existential despair, a sense that life lacks purpose, or a longing you can't name. If you refuse to stop, the divine may find other ways to reach you, perhaps through a crisis that forces you to seek meaning. The overloaded psyche craves transcendence, and ignoring this call only deepens its yearning. Transformation begins when you honor the encounter. Jung's method of active imagination, engaging with the unconscious through meditation, art, or reflection, offers a way to stop and listen. For Anna, this might mean deepening her meditation practice or journaling about her moments of awe. This act of pausing is not about adopting a religion but about opening to the numinous within. The divine is a guide, pointing Anna toward a life that feels more connected, more meaningful. By embracing it, she begins to integrate the ego's focus with the unconscious's wisdom, a key step in individuation. This sign is universal, touching anyone overwhelmed by life's demands. Whether you're a parent, a student, or a professional, the encounter with the divine emerges when the psyche seeks transcendence. You might feel it as a moment of clarity during a quiet moment, a sense of connection to humanity, or a dream that feels profound. Jung's psychology teaches us that these encounters are not luxuries but necessities. By stopping to explore them, you begin to weave your personal story into the larger tapestry of existence. Anna's meditation becomes a bridge, connecting her to her soul and the world. Let's make this personal. Reflect on your own encounters. Have you felt a moment of awe, a sense of something greater, that you couldn't explain? Perhaps during a sunset, a conversation, or a quiet moment alone. Jung's wisdom offers hope. By honoring these moments, you unlock your soul's potential. Small acts of stopping meditating, writing about a dream, or simply sitting in silence can deepen your connection to the divine. The encounter is not a distraction, it's a gift, guiding you toward a life that feels radiant and true. The beauty of this process is its accessibility. You don't need to be spiritual to experience the divine. Incremental steps, like Anna's meditation, can open the door to transcendence. Jung's psychology reminds us that the numinous is within you, waiting to be discovered. By pausing, you allow the unconscious to reveal its wisdom. Anna might find that her moments of awe inspire her to bring more creativity to her teaching, enriching her students' lives. This is the promise of individuation, a life that integrates your daily grind with your soul's longing for meaning. As we explore this sign, consider the cost of dismissal. If you ignore the divine, you risk a life that feels flat, disconnected from wonder. But there's hope in Jung's warning. By stopping now, by embracing these moments, you can harness their energy for growth. The encounter with the divine is not a fleeting moment but a threshold, inviting you to step into a deeper reality. The overloaded psyche is a crucible for transformation, and the numinous, when embraced, becomes a source of light. So, as you sit with this, ask yourself, where have you encountered the divine? Is it in a moment of awe, a dream, a sense of connection? The psyche is urging you to pause, to trust that transcendence is possible. By honoring this encounter, you take another step on Jung's path of individuation. But what happens when the psyche reveals the shadow's return, a darker challenge to your growth? Isn't that the moment when the journey tests your resilience? As we near the culmination of Carl Jung's warnings about the dangers of stopping when overwhelmed, we encounter the ninth sign of psychological transformation, the shadow's return. In Jungian psychology, the shadow is the hidden part of your psyche, containing repressed traits, fears, and desires. While we met the shadow's whisper in the first sign, its return is a deeper, more confrontational call, signaling that transformation is intensifying. When you're overloaded, you may have acknowledged the shadow's initial stirrings, but as you pause to transform, it resurfaces with greater force, demanding full integration. Picture Carlos, a chef whose restaurant thrives on his perfectionism. After starting to slow down and explore his creativity, he's now plagued by self-criticism and fear of failure. This is the shadow's return, a sign that his soul is grappling with deeper layers of the unconscious. Jung taught that the shadow is a lifelong companion, resurfacing at each stage of individuation to challenge growth. When you're overwhelmed, the shadow often hides behind busyness, but as you stop to transform, it emerges to test your resolve. For Carlos, his perfectionism once drove success, but now it reveals itself as a fear of vulnerability, a trait he's repressed. The shadow's return might manifest as self-doubt, projection, blaming others for your struggles, or even sabotage, like procrastinating on a passion project. These are not setbacks but opportunities, signaling that the psyche is ready to integrate the shadow more fully, moving you closer to the self. The danger of ignoring this return is significant. If you recoil from the shadow, you risk stalling your transformation. Jung warned that an unintegrated shadow creates inner conflict, manifesting as self-sabotage or external chaos. Carlos might undermine his creative efforts, convinced he's not good enough, or lash out at his staff, projecting his fears. This conflict can lead to regression, where you revert to old patterns of overload to avoid the shadow's challenge. If you refuse to stop and face it, the shadow may erupt in destructive ways, such as a career setback or personal crisis. The overloaded psyche demands integration, and the shadow's return is its final test. Transformation begins when you confront the shadow head-on. Jung's method of shadow work, dialoguing with the unconscious through reflection or creativity, offers a way to stop and engage. For Carlos, this might mean journaling about his fears or discussing them with a mentor. This act of pausing is not about defeating the shadow but about understanding it. His fear of failure might reveal a deeper need for acceptance, a realization that frees him to take creative risks. By integrating the shadow, Carlos transforms it from a saboteur into an ally, a key step in individuation where the soul grows by embracing its complexity. This sign is universal, touching anyone overwhelmed by life's demands. Whether you're a student, a parent, or a professional, the shadow's return emerges as you deepen your transformation. You might feel it as renewed self-criticism, a fear that holds you back, or a temptation to revert to old habits. Jung's psychology teaches us that this is not failure but progress. The shadow's return is a sign that you're ready to grow, to integrate more of your unconscious. By stopping to face it, you begin to weave the shadow into your conscious self, creating a more authentic life. Let's make this personal. Reflect on your own shadow's return. Do you feel a resurgence of doubt or fear as you try to change? Perhaps you're hesitant to pursue a new path, convinced you'll fail. Jung's wisdom offers hope. By facing the shadow, you unlock its transformative power. Small acts of stopping writing about your fears, meditating on your doubts, or seeking support can deepen your integration. The shadow is not your enemy, it's a teacher, guiding you toward wholeness. The beauty of this process is its depth. You don't need to conquer the shadow overnight. Incremental steps, like Carlos's journaling, can shift your relationship with it. Jung's psychology reminds us that transformation is a spiral, circling deeper with each encounter. By pausing, you allow the shadow to reveal its wisdom. Carlos might discover that his fear of failure fuels his creativity, pushing him to innovate in his restaurant. This is the promise of individuation, a life that embraces all parts of you, even the challenging ones. As we explore this sign, consider the cost of avoidance. If you flee the shadow's return, you risk derailing your growth. But there's hope in Jung's warning. By stopping now, by facing the shadow, you can harness its energy for transformation. The shadow's return is not a threat but a threshold, inviting you to step into a deeper self. The overloaded psyche is a crucible for growth, and the shadow, when integrated, becomes a source of strength. So, as you sit with this, ask yourself, where is your shadow returning? Is it in the doubts that resurface, the fears that hold you back? The psyche is urging you to pause, to trust that integration is possible. By facing this shadow, you take another step on Jung's path of individuation. But what happens when the psyche reveals the self, the culmination of your transformation? Isn't that the moment when the journey becomes whole? We reach the final stage of our journey through Carl Jung's warnings about the dangers of stopping when overwhelmed, arriving at the 10th sign of psychological transformation, the emergence of the self. In Jungian psychology, the self is the archetype of wholeness, the integrated core of your psyche that balances ego, shadow, anima/animus, and the unconscious. When you're overloaded, the self is often obscured by the chaos of daily life, but as you navigate the signs of transformation facing the shadow, wounds, and divine, you begin to glimpse its radiance. Picture Maya, a writer whose life was once consumed by deadlines and self-doubt. After pausing to heal and explore her purpose, she now feels a sense of inner harmony, creating work that reflects her true voice. This is the emergence of the self, a sign that her soul has found its center. Jung taught that the self is the goal of individuation, the lifelong process of becoming whole. It's not a static state but a dynamic balance, a dance between all parts of the psyche. When you're overwhelmed, the ego dominates, leaving the self in the shadows. But as you stop to transform, the self begins to shine, manifesting as a sense of authenticity, clarity, and connection to something greater. For Maya, this emergence might show up as confidence in her writing, a deeper connection to her readers, or a quiet joy in everyday moments. These are not fleeting, they're the psyche's affirmation that you're aligning with your true nature. The danger of overlooking this sign is subtle but real. If you fail to recognize the self's emergence, you might revert to old patterns of overload, mistaking busyness for progress. Jung warned that the ego can resist the self, fearing its loss of control. Maya might doubt her newfound harmony, tempted to chase external validation instead. This regression can manifest as restlessness, a sense that you're not doing enough, or a return to self-criticism. If you refuse to stop and savor the self, you risk undermining your transformation, falling back into the cycle of overwhelm. The psyche craves wholeness, and the self's emergence is its fulfillment. Transformation is sustained by embracing the self. Jung's concept of the mandala symbol of wholeness offers a way to stop and integrate this emergence. For Maya, this might mean creating a ritual to honor her journey, like meditating on a mandala or reflecting on her growth. This act of pausing is not about complacency but about anchoring the self in your daily life. The self is a guide, helping Maya navigate challenges with resilience and authenticity. By embracing it, she completes the cycle of individuation, weaving together the lessons of the shadow, wounds, and divine into a life that feels whole. This sign is universal, touching anyone overwhelmed by life's demands. Whether you're a student, a parent, or a professional, the emergence of the self emerges as you transform. You might feel it as a moment of clarity, a sense that you're finally you, or a joy that transcends circumstances. Jung's psychology teaches us that this is not the end but a new beginning. By stopping to embrace the self, you begin to live from your center, contributing to the world with authenticity. Maya's writing becomes a gift, inspiring others to find their own truth. Let's make this personal. Reflect on your own glimpses of the self. Have you felt moments of harmony, where life feels aligned? Perhaps in a creative flow, a meaningful conversation, or a quiet moment of gratitude? Jung's wisdom offers hope. By embracing these moments, you anchor your transformation. Small acts of stopping meditating, celebrating a milestone, or sharing your journey can deepen this connection. The self is not a distant goal, it's within you, waiting to shine. The beauty of this process is its radiance. You don't need to be perfect to embrace the self. Incremental steps, like Maya's ritual, can sustain your growth. Jung's psychology reminds us that the self is a lifelong journey, evolving with each challenge. By pausing, you allow the psyche to integrate its lessons. Maya might find that her harmony inspires her to mentor other writers, extending her transformation to others. This is the promise of individuation, a life that radiates authenticity, resilience, and joy. As we conclude, consider the cost of distraction. If you overlook the self, you risk losing its light. But there's hope in Jung's vision. By stopping now, by embracing your wholeness, you can live from your center. The emergence of the self is not a destination but a homecoming, inviting you to shine. Thank you for joining this journey. If this resonated, please like, share, and comment. Your voice matters. Let's keep exploring the soul's path together, trusting that every pause brings us closer to wholeness. So, as you sit with this, ask yourself, where is your self emerging? Is it in the moments when you feel truly you, when life feels whole? The psyche is urging you to pause, to trust that you are enough. By embracing the self, you complete this cycle of individuation, stepping into a life that shines with purpose and truth. Isn't that the journey we're all meant to take?